next biggest mistakes that actually stops people achieving that is letting the banks control you. Now, who in the audience has got their home and an investment property with the same bank? Well, you're not going to like me very much. Banks are money shops where you choose to buy your money. One of the things that the banks do is in their mortgage documents, they have an all monies clause. And in the all monies clause, it basically says that if they have security over any property, they can foreclose on any one of them for whatever reason to service a debt, or even if their policies change. Now, I want to tell you a couple of stories here to really hit home how important this all monies clause is and the actual effect of it. A number of years ago, I had a client who, in the accountancy practice actually, who owned a service station. It was a rural service station, and he owned a commercial property, and he owned a house, and he owned a farm. The house was an investment property. And one day, he got a letter in the mail from his bank. He's been with the bank for 35 years. He's never missed a payment. He's been a loyal customer of the bank. Every time he wanted a loan, he'd go and see the bank manager. The bank manager would say, sure, just bring me in the contract. We'll make that happen for you. His mate, he's his best, the bank manager's his best mate. Reads this letter, it's from head office, and it says, we're giving you 30 days to refinance your loan elsewhere. We have had a policy change effectively, and we want to reduce our exposure to rural service stations, for roadhouses. 30 days. He can't refinance in 30 days. He hasn't even done his tax return for the last 2 years. So he can't refinance. Of course, he doesn't refinance within the 30 days. He goes on a default interest. Default interest is at 13.75%. And when you're on default interest with one bank, no other bank's going to touch you. So he goes to another bank to try and get refinanced. And, you're in default interest. No, we don't want you. You must have done something wrong. This guy has not missed a payment in 35 years. Now, why did that happen? It happened because there was a policy change. I've seen it happen in the dairy farmers in South Australia. In fact, I spoke to the head of the Dairy Farmers Association when that happened, and she said that she spent most of her time trying to keep dairy farms in families that had owned those dairy farms for the last 3 generations. And the banks just decided that they no longer wanted exposure. So, hey, take your business somewhere else. We don't want you. Here's 60 days. Make it happen. You can't do that. I've seen the same thing happen in the vending industry. I've seen the same thing happen in the rag trade. I had a student down in Sydney who was in the rag trade. She used to import clothing from overseas and sell it through all the departments and things. She was worth about 8 mil, and she owned a warehouse down in Sydney. And the banks decided they no longer wanted exposure to the rag trade anymore, in fabrics and stuff. They forced her to sell off all of her properties in a down market. She went from being worth about 8 mil to about $800,000. She lost a warehouse, and because she lost a warehouse, she lost a business. I had a childcare worker, a childcare owner in the last couple of years who bought a childcare centre for $1.2 million here in Queensland. And then the government issued another licence for another childcare centre to be opened up a bit further down the road. He owned a home, he owned an investment property, he owned the childcare centre. His income was good. He went to the bank and said, hey, look, the turnover is going to change because this new childcare centre is going to be opened up. I just want you to, carry me for a bit, ride it out with me because we're going to, we're going to see some downturns in the admittances. The bank took that as I'm getting into trouble. They made him put all of his properties on the market and whatever sold. He was in a flat market again. He had a fire sale on his home. Because, the thing is, they got control over all of your properties. Which property do you think is the easiest one to sell? Which one's going to be the best presented? It's going to be your home. And that's the first one to go. The childcare centre, he got an offer. Now, remember, he paid $1.2 million for it. He got an offer of $800,000. And the bank made him take it. The buyer on the property then got wind of the fact that he was, dealing with the bank, so he withdrew his offer of $800,000 and offered $600,000, and the bank took it. He went from being worth nearly $2 million to $250,000. Now, did you hear about it? Did it meet the papers? Did it, no, it didn't. But that's what happened. I've been through 3 cycles in my professional career where I have seen exactly the same thing happen in the construction industry. The construction industry is highly at risk. In this last cycle, I've had plumbers, I've had chippies, I've had electricians, I've had them all come to me and saying, look at this, 30 days, 60 days, 45 days. And, you know, their whole lives are in turmoil in a time when things are a little bit tight. You actually want the bank to work with you. The exact reverse happens. Now, the other thing in your mortgage documents, there's clauses in there that say that if your circumstances change, you have to go and advise them. So if you are on double income and then one of you gets pregnant, presumably the girl, gets pregnant, and then, you know, quits work to look after the kids, you've gone from 2 incomes to 1 income. Suddenly now you don't fit into the serviceability box. They can foreclose on your house. The same thing can happen with if you lose your job or you go from employed to self-employed. You know, risking everything with any one of them, doesn't matter which one it is, with any one of them is the wrong thing to do. It's called cross-securitization, and you do not want to cross-securitize.